Hello family, enjoy this relaxing moment with charm stories. Remember to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comment section. Also generously hit the like button cause it means the world to us. Please sit back, relax and enjoy as we dive into the story. Isabel Grant opened her eyes to the soft glow of early morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her opulent city apartment. The gentle hum of traffic outside was a comfort she had grown accustomed to over the years. The penthouse was situated on the top floor of a building overlooking the skyline, and she enjoyed starting her day with a sweeping view of the city she loved. Today, however, was no ordinary morning. It marked the 10-year wedding anniversary of her marriage to Eric. As soon as the realization settled in, Isabel felt a flutter of excitement in her chest. Their marriage had certainly gone through its share of ups and downs. What marriage hadn't after a decade? Still, she clung to the hope that this special celebration might rekindle the waning spark in their relationship. She padded across the polished marble floor to the kitchen, where the coffee maker had just finished brewing a fresh pot. The aroma of coffee filled the air, inviting her to pour a cup. Before she could reach for a mug, she felt a pair of arms slip around her waist. She turned to see Eric smiling sleepily at her. "Happy anniversary," he said, pressing a warm kiss to her forehead. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and there were faint shadows under his eyes. He looked tired, as though he hadn't slept well the night before. "Happy anniversary," Isabel replied, giving him a gentle smile. For a moment, she allowed herself to believe they were the loving couple they once were, before work demands, social engagements, and subtle resentments had begun to drive invisible wedges between them. "Ready for our trip?" Eric asked, taking a step back to reach for his own mug. "Your family is probably more excited than we are." "I'm sure they are," Isabel replied. "Mom's been calling me every day, making sure I've got every detail sorted out." "You know how she is." Eric chuckled half-heartedly. "Yes, I do." What Isabel didn't know was that Eric's thoughts were not on the family or even on her at that moment. Beneath his cool exterior, his mind was racing with the final details of a grand deception he had been plotting for months. Sophia, his secret lover, was going to be on that island. His mistress in plain sight, hidden behind a fabricated story he had concocted. He had introduced her to the staff at the resort as a distant family friend of the Grants, ensuring that no one would suspect the true nature of their relationship. To Isabel, the journey to the island felt like a promising getaway. She had always yearned for more alone time with Eric, away from the stresses of their daily routines, and she hoped the private island would serve as the perfect setting to reconnect. Over the past few years, her life had become a constant whirlwind of business meetings, philanthropic events, and dinners that felt more like business gatherings than romantic evenings for two. She had grown used to being the doting wife who smiled politely by Eric's side, and she was tired of it. This anniversary, in her mind, could mark a turning point, a chance to rekindle a genuine bond. Once breakfast was done, Isabel headed to their spacious bedroom, where suitcases were already packed and neatly lined up against the wall. Her personal assistant had taken care of most of the details, from travel documents to carefully curated island-appropriate outfits. She ran her hand over the top of her suitcase, recalling the last time she truly enjoyed a private getaway with Eric. It felt like centuries ago, back when they were newlyweds, exploring Europe hand in hand, dreams of a shining future dancing in their eyes. Yet, as she quietly reflected, she couldn't deny a nagging feeling that something was amiss. Lately, Eric's behavior had been hard to pin down. He was more distant, increasingly glued to his phone, and often had unexplained late-night meetings. Isabel had managed to push those concerns to the back of her mind, focusing instead on how important it was to make this trip a success, for both of them, and for the sake of their marriage. The doorbell's chime signaled that the limousine had arrived. It was time to leave the comfort of their high-rise sanctuary and start the next phase of their journey. Isabel took one last glance in the mirror, checking her reflection. Her honey-brown hair was styled into soft waves, and her tailored travel dress gave her a poised, elegant look. She wanted everything about this trip to be perfect, starting from the very first impression. They headed downstairs, where her mother, father, and younger sister were waiting with excited smiles. Suitcases were loaded into the limousine under the watchful eye of the driver, while the doorman politely tipped his hat in farewell. Inside the car, Isabel's family chatted energetically about the island, the rumored beauty of its private beaches, and the quality of the exclusive resort. Isabel answered their questions with cheerful optimism, although she occasionally caught sight of Eric quietly typing away on his phone. His brow furrowed at messages only he could see. By the time they reached the marina, the sun had climbed higher in the sky, its rays dancing on the water's surface in sparkling flecks of gold and silver. The boat, a sleek, white yacht capable of carrying up to 24 passengers comfortably, stood waiting to whisk them away. Crew members greeted them with polite smiles and helped them aboard. Isabel breathed in the salt-tinged air and felt a wave of exhilaration. She loved being at sea, the sense of freedom that came with leaving behind the city's noise. The gentle rocking of the yacht as it navigated the harbor was oddly soothing. She tried to latch onto that sense of calm, convincing herself that this vacation would be a dream. Eric handed her a glass of champagne that the staff had offered. "To us," he said, clinking his flute against hers. "To us," she echoed, choosing to focus on the sweet effervescence of the champagne rather than the swirl of uncertain feelings in her gut. As the yacht cut through the waves, gliding further and further from the mainland, Isabel found solace in her family's chatter. Her sister excitedly pointed out passing ships, her father cracked jokes about seasickness, and her mother fussed over whether the resort chef could accommodate her dietary preferences. Isabel tried to participate wholeheartedly, but every now and then, she caught Eric glancing at his phone, a secretive smile tugging at his lips. Little did she know, a quiet storm was brewing behind that phone screen. Eric was coordinating last-minute details with Sophia, ensuring her secret arrival was well executed. He had spun an elaborate web of deceit, telling Sophia he couldn't bear to celebrate this milestone with only his wife. He needed her there too, even if they had to hide in plain sight. Soon, the island's lush greenery and ivory coastline came into view. A ring of turquoise water surrounded the island like a protective moat, shimmering with a captivating allure that drew everyone's attention. Isabel felt her spirits lift at the sight. The island was breathtaking, and she had a fleeting thought that maybe this was exactly what she needed, to bring passion and affection back into her marriage. Her heart fluttered with both excitement and unspoken apprehension as the yacht approached the dock. One of the resort's managers, a tall, smiling man dressed in a crisp white shirt and khaki pants, stood waiting on the pier. Behind him, palm trees swayed in the warm breeze, and the subtle sound of steel drums drifted through the air, adding to the sense of a tropical haven. Eric led the way off the yacht, holding Isabel's hand to help her keep her balance. Cameras clicked as her parents insisted on capturing the moment on their phones. Laughter echoed across the pier, merging with the sound of gentle waves lapping against the hull. The manager welcomed them warmly, offering leis of fragrant island flowers. Just as Isabel was about to relax fully, to let the island's atmosphere wash away her anxieties, she spotted a woman stepping off a smaller boat that had docked just behind them. She moved with a confident grace that immediately demanded attention. Her long, dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, and her stylish attire suggested she was no mere tourist. Isabel's eyes flicked to Eric. He was watching that woman with an intensity Isabel had rarely seen before. Then, as though snapping out of a trance, he turned back to Isabel, his expression carefully arranged to appear neutral. "Isabel," he said, gesturing to the woman who was now approaching them with a bright smile, "I'd like you to meet Sophia. She's, a distant friend of the family who decided to join us. She reached out when she heard we'd be here. I hope it's all right that I invited her along." A slight confusion fluttered across Isabel's features, but she quickly recovered, adopting her usual graciousness. "Of course," she said warmly, extending her hand. "Welcome to the island. We're glad to have you." Sophia's handshake was firm, her eyes sharp. "Thank you. I've heard wonderful things about this place, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity." Isabel forced a polite smile as she tried to dismiss a strange sensation that gripped her heart like an invisible fist. She couldn't put her finger on it, but something about this woman felt off. Little did she know how accurate her intuition would turn out to be, and how drastically this trip would change her life forever. The resort itself was a sprawling paradise nestled amidst thick palm groves, pristine beaches, and winding pathways illuminated by strategically placed tiki torches. After disembarking and dealing with the formalities at the reception area, Isabel's family was whisked away to the grand villa reserved for them. The villa had multiple bedrooms, its own private pool, and a breathtaking view of the turquoise ocean. Every inch of the space exuded luxury, from the inlaid stone floors to the artisan woodwork in the open-air living areas. As everyone settled in, Isabel wandered out to the balcony overlooking the main resort complex. From her vantage point, she could see guests milling about, staff members moving with purpose, and the vibrant bloom of tropical flowers adding splashes of color everywhere she looked. The sea breeze carried the scent of hibiscus and salt water, which filled her lungs with a refreshing clarity. Down below, she noticed Eric in animated conversation with Sophia, their heads bent together as though sharing some private joke or observation. Isabel tried to quell the stab of envy that shot through her. There was no reason to be jealous, she told herself. Eric had been clear. Sophia was just an old family acquaintance who happened to be around. But why, Isabel wondered, had she never heard of Sophia before this trip? Shaking off her concerns, she returned to the communal living area of the villa, where her mother was already flipping through a glossy brochure featuring the island's amenities. "Darling, come look at this spa menu," her mother said, waving the brochure in the air. "They do these volcanic stone massages and seaweed wraps. We should treat ourselves." "That sounds lovely, Mom," Isabel replied, walking over to join her. "You and Dad should absolutely indulge. This is a family celebration, after all." Her father chimed in from across the room, where he was already mixing himself a tropical cocktail at the minibar. "Don't forget about me. I might need a massage after the flight we had. My back is killing me." Her younger sister, Anna, rolled her eyes good-naturedly. "Dad, you know you just want someone to pamper you while you sip a margarita." The light-hearted exchange helped lift Isabel's mood. She loved seeing her family so relaxed and happy. For the first time that day, she let herself believe that this getaway might be precisely the remedy her marriage needed. Maybe, in the tranquil setting of this island paradise, she and Eric could reconnect on a deeper level. A few hours later, as the afternoon sunlight warmed the resort pathways, Isabel decided to explore on her own. She slipped into a comfortable sundress and sandals, intending to enjoy the tropical flora and perhaps find a secluded spot to read or think. She meandered past clusters of hibiscus, bougainvillea, and frangipani, stopping occasionally to admire exotic birds that flitted among the branches. Eventually, she found herself near the private beach area. Rows of plush lounge chairs and palm-thatched umbrellas lined the sand. A few steps away stood a beachside bar, where an older bartender was meticulously arranging cocktail garnishes. Isabel smiled at him as she passed by, and he greeted her with a warm nod. Looking out at the ocean, she saw Sophia standing alone at the water's edge, letting the gentle surf lap at her feet. Her slender figure was outlined by the sun, and despite the serenity of the moment, Isabel felt an internal pang of discomfort. Should she approach and welcome Sophia more warmly, or keep her distance? She decided that politeness dictated she make an effort to be hospitable. After all, the woman was technically their guest. Approaching with caution, Isabel noted that Sophia appeared deep in thought, staring at the horizon with an intensity that suggested she wasn't merely admiring the view. "Hey," Isabel said softly, stopping a few feet away. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" Sophia turned, her expression momentarily surprised before she replaced it with a friendly smile. "It really is. The ocean here is stunning. I've traveled quite a bit, but this place might be the most breathtaking I've ever seen." "I agree," Isabel said, following Sophia's gaze out to the open water. "It's wonderful that you could join us on such short notice. I didn't know Eric had friends in common with my family who'd be on the island." Sophia gave a slight shrug, her dark hair moving in the ocean breeze. "Eric and we go way back. It's been a while since we last spoke, but when I heard he was going to be here, well, I couldn't resist the chance to catch up. I hope it's not an imposition." Isabel studied Sophia's face for a moment. Her features were striking: high cheekbones, intelligent eyes, and a poised confidence that suggested she was used to moving in exclusive circles. "No imposition at all," Isabel finally said, forcing warmth into her tone. "It's always nice to make new friends, or reconnect with old ones, in your case." Sophia nodded. "Thanks for being so welcoming. You have a lovely family," she added. "I'm excited to spend time with you all." For a few moments, they stood side by side, letting the gentle murmur of waves fill the space between them. Then Sophia cleared her throat. "Well, I should head back. Eric mentioned something about reviewing the dinner plans for tonight. He's very organized. Right, Isabel replied. The mention of Eric snapped her attention back to the central source of her unease. She wondered what Sophia and Eric needed to discuss regarding dinner plans, especially since the resort staff had already coordinated everything with her. Yet she reminded herself there was no real reason to be suspicious. "I'll see you tonight, then." Sophia offered a parting smile before making her way across the sand. Isabel watched her go, feeling a subtle tension in the pit of her stomach. Something about Sophia's presence triggered an internal alarm, but without concrete reason, Isabel hesitated to let suspicion fester. She tried to chalk it up to the stress of wanting everything to go smoothly for her anniversary. That evening, as twilight engulfed the island in a soft indigo haze, the resort staff arranged a welcoming dinner on a terrace overlooking the ocean. Tiki torches flickered, casting dancing shadows on white tablecloths. The air was filled with the scent of grilled fish, tropical fruits, and fragrant island spices. Isabel's family, brimming with excitement, took their seats around the long table. Eric arrived a few minutes late, apologizing with an easy grin. "Got caught up finalizing a surprise for tomorrow," he said, giving Isabel a quick kiss on the cheek. She smiled, trying not to let the earlier tension overshadow her joy at seeing him. She wanted to believe that his tardiness was an innocent result of planning something special for her. Sophia was already seated, chatting animatedly with Isabel's sister and mother about the island's activities. Isabel took note of how seamlessly Sophia seemed to fit in. Her conversation flowed effortlessly from cultural highlights to local cuisine. She was charming, witty, and well-traveled, a perfect companion in any social setting. If Isabel hadn't been harboring doubts, she might have been drawn to Sophia's charismatic energy herself. Drinks were poured, and the meal began with a colorful array of appetizers. Everyone laughed and swapped stories about their day. Isabel felt a flicker of concern when she spotted Eric and Sophia exchanging a glance across the table, but the moment was brief, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. She reminded herself that gazes could be harmless. Not every look was laced with meaning. As dinner progressed, her father regaled the table with anecdotes of his youth, and her mother joked about how she had nearly mistaken a seagull for a rare tropical bird earlier that day. Meanwhile, Anna launched into a story about her most recent travels in South America. The lively chatter provided a comforting background noise. Still, Isabel found her focus drifting to Eric and Sophia. She couldn't help but notice their familiarity. Inside jokes, quick smiles, a shared vocabulary that implied a history Isabel wasn't part of. It nagged at her. Yet she resisted the urge to confront Eric about it. Surely, she told herself, if there were something truly untoward going on, she would sense more blatant red flags. By the time dessert was served, a decadent coconut cream concoction, Isabel decided she was probably overthinking. She resolved to engage more actively in the conversation and took the lead in proposing a toast to the group. To family, friends, both old and new, and to a wonderful time on this beautiful island, she said, raising her glass. The group chimed in, echoing their cheers. Eric caught her eye and gave her a small, appreciative nod. For a brief moment, a familiar warmth stirred within her, a memory of simpler times. She smiled back, letting the sweet tang of the dessert and the glow of the torches ease her worries. Unbeknownst to her, the night was merely setting the stage for a far more tangled interplay of secrets and lies. And though her family was oblivious, Isabel's instinct hadn't misled her. Sophia was more than a mysterious stranger. She was a walking embodiment of Eric's hidden life, poised to turn this anniversary getaway into a test of loyalty and strength that none of them would forget. Late that same night, while Isabel's family members retired to their rooms or strolled along the moonlit shore, Eric and Sophia found themselves alone in a secluded part of the resort gardens. The lush foliage formed a canopy overhead, and the distant sound of ocean waves provided a soothing backdrop to their clandestine meeting. Eric glanced around nervously, making sure they were out of earshot. He could feel his heart pounding with both excitement and guilt. "I can't believe you actually made it here," he said in a hushed tone, stepping closer to Sophia. "I've never done anything like this before." Sophia leaned against the trunk of a palm tree, a coy smile playing on her lips. "You're the one who insisted it had to be this weekend, Eric. I would have been content waiting until your precious anniversary was over." He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "I told you, This is a big deal for me. Isabel and we've grown apart. But it doesn't mean I can just blow her off on our 10th anniversary. My family's here, too. It's complicated." Sophia crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Complicated for whom?" "I'm just your distant family friend, remember?" Her tone carried a hint of bitterness. She had no interest in blending into the wallpaper while he played the devoted husband. Eric placed a hand on her arm. "Listen, this isn't easy for me either. You think I enjoy sneaking around? But you know what would happen if Isabel found out." Sophia's expression softened a bit. "I know. I'm not trying to cause you trouble. I just want to be with you." She let out a quiet sigh. "Besides, it's kind of a thrill, isn't it? Hiding in plain sight." He allowed himself a small grin. It was, in a twisted way, exhilarating. "We just have to be careful," he whispered. "We can't let her suspect anything. If we time this right, we can sneak away for a bit, maybe say we're both going to do some water sport or spa activity. It won't raise eyebrows." Sophia stepped forward, closing the gap between them. She looped her arms around his neck, pulling him closer. "I'm all yours, Eric. Whenever you can break away from your devoted husband duties, you know where to find me." He swallowed, torn between desire and a nagging sense of betrayal. Yet the allure of Sophia proved too strong. He bent down, pressing a fervent kiss to her lips. When they finally broke apart, he realized how easily she unraveled him, and how dangerous it was to have her here, right under Isabel's nose. "We should go," he finally managed to say. "Someone might notice we're both missing." Sophia nodded, stepping back into the shadows. "Don't keep me waiting too long," she teased, her voice carrying a light, seductive edge that promised more meetings to come. They parted ways, slipping quietly through the tropical foliage back toward their respective rooms. Eric made sure to approach the villa from a direction where he wouldn't be spotted side by side with Sophia. Before entering, he paused to collect himself, to calm his racing heart so Isabel wouldn't sense his adrenaline surge. Inside the villa, Isabel was seated in the living area, flipping through a magazine on island conservation. She looked up, relieved to see him but noting the slight sheen of sweat on his forehead. "Where were you?" she asked casually. "I thought you went to get some fresh air." Eric plastered on a warm smile. "I did. I took a walk around the garden. It's beautiful out there at night. There's a path lined with these giant ferns. You should see it sometime." She nodded, pleased that he seemed genuinely impressed by the island's scenery. "I might do that tomorrow." She closed the magazine and stood up, stretching her arms. "I think I'll head to bed now. Big day tomorrow. Rumor has it there's a surprise." He laughed softly, hoping to steer the conversation away from his covert activities. "Ah, I see word travels fast. Let's just say I have a few tricks up my sleeve." Isabel's eyes lit up, and she approached him, placing a hand on his cheek affectionately. "I'm glad. I'm really happy we're doing this together, Eric." For a split second, guilt twisted inside him like a knife. He grabbed her hand and gave it a squeeze. "I'm happy too," he lied, half believing that part of him still yearned for a simpler time with her. "Let's get some rest." While Eric and Isabel turned in for the night, Sophia watched the moon from her own balcony suite on the other side of the resort. She sipped a glass of wine, contemplating the days to come. She knew Eric belonged to someone else, and that meant she would remain hidden in the background, or at most, appear as a mere acquaintance during group activities. But in Sophia's mind, Eric was worth that inconvenience. After all, the secrecy only added to the thrill of their entanglement. What none of them realized was that Isabel, sharp and far from naive, was already sensing the subtle disconnects in Eric's behavior. Though her heart wanted to trust him, her gut whispered another story. And in the hush of that tropical night, destiny was quietly orchestrating its next move. Morning arrived with a brilliant sunrise that bathed the island in a spectrum of pinks and oranges. Isabel woke early, drawn to the view from the villa's balcony. She stepped out in her robe, letting the soft breeze tousle her hair. In the distance, she could see the azure water sparkling as if sprinkled with diamonds. Her tranquility, however, was short-lived. She heard muffled voices through the open balcony doors and recognized them as Eric and her sister, Anna, talking in the living room. Curiosity piqued. She moved closer to eavesdrop. "Just seemed off," Anna was saying. "That friend of yours, Sophia, right?" She appeared almost too comfortable. "Are you sure she's just a friend?" Eric gave a forced laugh. "Anna, you're overthinking. Sophia and I grew up around the same neighborhood for a few years. That's all. She's very outgoing, so it's natural she seems forward." Isabel frowned. Anna was obviously picking up on the same strange vibes she had. But Eric's dismissive tone, though confident, did little to alleviate Isabel's growing unease. She decided not to confront them directly. Instead, she quietly continued getting ready for the day, selecting a loose, flowing maxi dress perfect for beachside activities. Despite her reservations, she intended to enjoy herself. Later that morning, Isabel and her family attended a lavish brunch at an open-air pavilion. A steel drum band provided lively background music as they sampled tropical fruits, fresh pastries, and gourmet dishes prepared by the resort's chef. Eric was there, chatting with her father about business opportunities in the region. Sophia had not yet appeared, which gave Isabel a small reprieve from her suspicions. Midway through brunch, Sophia sauntered in, wearing a breezy sarong and a confident smile. She greeted everyone warmly, taking a seat beside Anna. Isabel tried to remain relaxed, but she felt a slow burn of tension creeping up her neck. "Good morning," Sophia said cheerily, helping herself to a plate of fresh papaya and pineapple. "I just went for a jog around the island's perimeter. It's stunning. The paths cut through these hidden coves and vantage points that overlook the cliffs. Highly recommend it." Anna perked up, always eager for an adventure. "That sounds fun. Maybe we should all do that tomorrow." Sophia flashed a winning smile. "I'd love to show you around. It's a bit of a workout, but so worth it." Isabel observed Sophia's interactions. She was undeniably charming, and her stories seemed genuine. Yet, in her gut, Isabel couldn't shake the feeling that Sophia was putting on a performance, one carefully curated to impress everyone while subtly mesmerizing Eric. As they finished brunch, Eric announced that he and the resort's activity coordinator had arranged an afternoon snorkeling excursion. The family cheered at the prospect. Isabel mustered her enthusiasm, noting that Sophia's eyes flicked to Eric with a mischievous glint. The snorkeling trip proved to be a hit. A small boat took them out to a coral reef teeming with colorful fish, sea turtles, and other marine life. Isabel felt a wave of awe as she glided through the water, marveling at the underwater world. For a brief time, her anxiety receded, replaced by wonder and gratitude that she could share this experience with her family. After the snorkeling, as they all climbed back onto the boat, Isabel noticed Eric and Sophia whispering in the corner. She moved subtly toward them, pretending to adjust her snorkeling gear, catching just a snippet of their hushed conversation. "Meet tonight," Sophia whispered, her voice laced with anticipation. Eric nodded. "Later. After dinner. The south side of the island." Isabel felt her heart hammer in her chest. She quickly turned away, feigning distraction with a loose snorkel strap so they wouldn't realize she was listening. A swirl of emotions buzzed in her mind: anger, confusion, hurt. She had her suspicions, and this brief exchange seemed to confirm them. Yet she lacked the courage to confront Eric head-on, especially with her family so close by. Instead, she resolved to keep an eye on them, to gather more evidence before drawing any final conclusions. That night, after a leisurely dinner at one of the island's upscale restaurants, Isabel decided to follow Eric. She pretended fatigue and excused herself early, returning to the villa under the guise of needing rest. But instead of going to bed, she donned a dark sweater and slipped outside, careful to keep to the shadowed pathways around the resort. Her pulse raced as she navigated the edges of the property. The moon was almost full, casting silver light through the palm trees. Crickets chirped, and distant waves crashed softly along the beach. She felt a strange mix of fear and determination, as though each step confirmed a truth she desperately wished wasn't real. Eventually, she came upon a secluded stretch of sand near the south side of the island. Through the dim moonlight, she spotted two figures standing close together. Even at a distance, she could make out Eric's silhouette and the slender frame of Sophia pressed against him. They appeared to be locked in an embrace. Isabel's stomach churned. The sight was more than just a fleeting suspicion. It was reality, undeniable and stark as the moonlight. She sank behind a cluster of sea grapes to steady herself, tears welling in her eyes. She thought about confronting them right then and there. But her family's presence on the island, the logistics of an immediate showdown, and her own rising anger held her back. She strained to hear what they were saying, but the combination of surf and wind made it difficult to catch entire sentences. Snippets reached her ears. "Don't know how long I can keep this up," Eric's voice, tinged with worry. "Trust me, everything's under control," Sophia's cool assurance. Isabel's hand clenched into a fist. She realized that, for her own emotional self-preservation, she had to leave before she collapsed into sobs that would surely give her away. Quietly, she retreated down the beach, her heart pounding in her ears. Despite the raw pain slicing through her, another emotion took root: resolve. She might have been naive enough to think this trip would patch up the fractures in her marriage, but she certainly wasn't blind or helpless. She decided, then and there, that she would not be the victim. If Eric wanted to play this game, she would make sure to have a plan of her own, one that would catch him completely off guard. With each footstep in the sand, Isabel felt her initial despair crystallizing into a steely determination. She was done being the trusting wife who overlooked the signs. She was no longer content to be overshadowed by secrets and lies in her own marriage. In the distance, the soft glow of the resort lights beckoned her back. She took a shaky breath, composing herself. She needed clarity, and she knew exactly where to find it. Little did Eric realize that the woman he was betraying had layers of her own secrets, secrets that could change everything in the blink of an eye. The morning after her clandestine discovery felt surreal for Isabel. She went about her routine as if nothing had changed, chatting with her parents over breakfast, discussing spa appointments with Anna, feigning normalcy when Eric joined them at the table. Yet beneath the surface of her composed exterior, she was plotting her next move. Her chance came mid-morning when Eric declared he had business calls to make and headed to a private lounge in the resort. Sophia also vanished soon after, claiming she was off to shop at the island's boutique. Isabel doubted they were going to the same place in broad daylight, but the pattern of their overlapping disappearances fed her resolve to proceed with caution. Slipping away from her family, Isabel made her way to the far side of the resort complex, where a cluster of villas were perched on a rocky outcrop. One of these villas belonged to the resort manager, a sharp-minded woman named Amara who had overseen the property's operations for the past 5 years. Isabel had specifically requested to meet with Amara upon arriving at the island, citing some private matters to discuss. She knocked lightly on the villa's door. Amara answered, dressed in a crisp linen shirt and a professional expression. "Mrs. Grant," she greeted softly, stepping aside to let Isabel in. The interior of the villa was modern yet comfortable, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a cove of teal water. Isabel paused to take in the view, then turned to Amara, who was studying her expectantly. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice," Isabel began, her voice wavering slightly. "Of course," Amara replied. "How can I be of service?" Isabel exhaled, gathering her composure. "I'm sure you're aware of my financial dealings regarding this property. The negotiations were delicate, to say the least." Amara nodded, her expression unreadable. "I am aware, though most of the staff is not. Your anonymity was handled with the utmost discretion, as you requested." Isabel's eyes flickered with gratitude. "I appreciate that. Now, I need your help with another matter." She paused, collecting her thoughts. "I need to arrange for certain monitoring of an area in the resort. Specifically, the cabana on the West Beach." Amara regarded her steadily. "Discreet monitoring, I assume." "Yes," Isabel confirmed. "My marriage is in trouble. My husband is here with another woman, under the guise of them being family friends. I have no intention of causing a public scandal, but I need undeniable proof for legal purposes." She felt a rush of relief at finally voicing the problem out loud. For days, she'd been bottling up her suspicions and heartbreak. Now, at least, she was taking steps to protect herself. Mara's lips formed a thin line. "I see. Given the nature of your ownership stake, we can certainly arrange hidden cameras in that location. The staff will cooperate, and I will keep this confidential." "Thank you," Isabel replied, her voice taut with gratitude. "I also need to ensure that the moment I'm ready to confront him, the timing and setting are under my control. I'll need help from your security team." Mara nodded, already stepping to her desk to jot down notes. "Understood. We can manage that. Perhaps we can stage a special event, an anniversary dinner or a private gathering, where you can address the situation." A grim smile crossed Isabel's face. "Yes. We're scheduled to have a large family dinner tomorrow night on the beachfront." "That would be perfect." Mara's eyes flashed with professional efficiency. "Then we'll set everything up by this evening. You can review the footage and decide how to proceed." They finalized their plan quickly. As Isabel departed, her heart pounded with a potent mix of anger and anticipation. She had never imagined her 10th wedding anniversary would devolve into such betrayal, yet the betrayal itself had awoken a part of her she didn't know she possessed, the will to fight back, to reclaim her dignity, and to use the power she'd painstakingly built over the years. Stepping out of Mara's villa, she shielded her eyes from the midday sun. Her mind wandered back to how she had acquired her substantial wealth in the first place. Long before marrying Eric, she had inherited a modest sum from a grandparent. With a natural acumen for investments, she turned that sum into a small fortune by the time she was in her early 20s. She met Eric during a phase of her life when she believed she needed stability. She fell in love with his charm, his ambition, and the dream he sold her of a thriving partnership, both romantic and business-oriented. But over the years, she noticed how Eric's priorities began to shift. He paid less attention to her and more to the social ladder he was climbing. She had chosen to keep her assets in her name, a decision that always seemed to annoy him, though he never outright said so. Ultimately, her private investments continued to flourish, culminating in her quiet acquisition of this very island resort. Now that choice, once a mere safeguard, could become the linchpin of a far more personal victory. Eric thought he was pulling the strings, smugly conducting a clandestine affair right under her nose. He had no inkling that the entire stage belonged to her and that soon she would pull the curtain back on his deceit. Later that day, Isabel feigned normalcy while spending time with her mother and sister at the spa. While they gushed over the massages and facials, her mind was somewhere else entirely, on hidden cameras, strategic reveals, and the final showdown that loomed. She caught a few glimpses of Eric and Sophia from a distance, laughing and chatting during a group lunch near the pool. They looked too comfortable. The sight incensed her, but she held her composure. She knew it wouldn't be long before she had everything she needed. That evening, just before dinner, Isabel rendezvoused with Mara in a discreet hallway near the staff offices. Together, they viewed the footage recorded from the hidden cameras in the cabana. The time-stamped clips showed Eric and Sophia locked in passionate embraces, exchanging confessions of love. They spoke about how Eric felt stifled in his marriage and how Sophia was the only one who understood him. Each damning word drove a knife deeper into Isabel's heart. But with that pain came the unwavering certainty that she was doing the right thing. By the end of the viewing session, her tears had dried, replaced by a cool, controlled rage. "You have everything you need," Mara said softly, shutting off the final clip. "Yes," Isabel answered, her voice steady. "Thank you, Mara. I'll handle it from here." She left the staff offices, the damning USB drive safely tucked into her purse. The next step was to arrange a proper gathering, the official anniversary dinner, where she would bring Eric's world crashing down around him. For all his scheming, he had never anticipated that the island, and all its resources, belonged to her. That night, as she lay in bed, Isabel stared at the ceiling fan turning overhead. Eric was asleep beside her, blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to break. Isabel wondered if he truly cared about the vows they had made or if it had all been a facade. But her reverie was cut short by a quiet determination. No more tears, no more heartbreak. Tomorrow, she would strike back with the power he had so underestimated. Morning dawned with a sense of inevitability. Isabel woke early to finalize her plans. She felt a calm that came from knowing she was no longer passive in this betrayal. Tonight would be the night. She spent the day keeping herself busy, organizing a casual lunch outing for her parents, suggesting a yoga session for her sister on the beach, and politely turning down Eric's half-hearted offer to join him for a midday stroll. She wanted him and Sophia to feel as though they had the entire day to themselves. Let them indulge in stolen moments and furtive glances. By nightfall, their illusions would collapse. During a quiet break in the afternoon, Isabel retreated to her suite, locking the door behind her. She opened her laptop and accessed her private account, carefully typing out emails to her legal team. The subject line read simply, "Urgent divorce proceedings." She drafted instructions detailing what she wanted done immediately after the confrontation. Though the heartbreak still weighed heavily on her, the surge of empowerment propelled her forward. She saved the messages in her outbox, ready to send them the moment she made her decision public. Next, she examined the documents relating to her majority ownership of the resort. Her attorneys had masterfully structured the acquisition so that it would remain anonymous to everyone except the highest levels of resort management. Even Eric, who prided himself on being well-informed, had no clue. Satisfied that her legal arsenal was in order, Isabel spent the rest of the afternoon putting the finishing touches on the anniversary dinner. She directed the staff to decorate the beachfront with elegant lanterns, floral arrangements, and a small stage area. Each detail was designed to create an atmosphere of celebration, an atmosphere that would make Eric believe he'd pulled off his deception flawlessly. As sunset approached, the sky erupted in shades of gold, coral, and magenta. Guests began to gather at the beachfront, drawn by the promise of gourmet dining and lively music. Isabel's family arrived, dressed in their finest resort wear, exchanging compliments and chatting merrily. Eric arrived shortly after, wearing a relaxed linen shirt and a charismatic smile as he greeted her parents. Sophia was not far behind, looking radiant in a flowing dress. She positioned herself at the periphery of the gathering, sipping a cocktail, her gaze scanning for Eric whenever she thought no one was looking. Isabel took note of each sidelong glance, each subtle shift in body language, storing the observations like arrows in her quiver. As night descended, the lanterns and fairy lights transformed the beachfront into a magical tableau. The resort staff, having been fully briefed by Amara, executed every detail flawlessly. Soft music played in the background, and the gentle lapping of waves provided a soothing undercurrent to the festivities. Finally, dinner was served. Long tables draped in white linen were laden with tropical dishes, coconut shrimp, seared ahi tuna, fresh salads, and fruit platters that looked almost too pretty to eat. The air was filled with the mingling aromas of sweet and savory. Wine flowed freely as the group toasted the milestone of Isabel and Eric's 10-year anniversary. Midway through the meal, Eric stood, tapping a spoon against his glass. The sound rang out, drawing all eyes to him. Isabel's heartbeat quickened. "I just want to say a few words," Eric began, his tone measured and confident. "First, to my beautiful wife, Isabel. Thank you for standing by me all these years, for believing in me, for being my partner. We've built a life together that many can only dream of." Sophia shot him a subtle smile from across the table, a private signal that Isabel did not miss. She felt a wave of revulsion that he had the audacity to speak of partnership while openly betraying her. Eric continued, "I also want to thank our family for joining us on this special occasion. The love and support you show us is truly invaluable. And to new friends," he gestured loosely, which Isabel understood to be a reference to Sophia, "welcome to our circle." A smattering of polite applause followed. Eric took his seat, looking pleased with himself, evidently believing that everything was going according to plan. Next, her father offered a brief speech, reminiscing about Isabel's childhood and the day she had introduced Eric to them. He concluded with heartfelt congratulations for their future. Then her mother raised a toast, praising Isabel's accomplishments in business and philanthropy, peppering in light humor about how she'd always known her daughter was destined for success. Finally, it was Isabel's turn. She stood slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. Her gaze swept across the table, landing on each person in turn. Her parents, her sister, the handful of resort guests who'd been invited to share in the evening, and lastly Eric, whose eyes brimmed with anticipation for a polished, loving speech. "Thank you, everyone," she began, her voice resonating with calm clarity. "Thank you for being here to celebrate a decade of marriage. 10 years. Quite a journey, isn't it?" A ripple of agreement passed through the group. Isabel allowed a moment of silence to build tension, feeling her pulse drum against her ribcage. "When two people make vows, they promise to love, honor, and cherish each other," she said. "They promise loyalty and honesty." Her gaze drifted pointedly toward Eric, whose expression remained affable but began to show hints of unease. She continued, in the past few days, I've come to realize that loyalty and honesty mean different things to different people. Some see them as optional. A murmur went through the crowd. Isabel's mother frowned, sensing something deeper was afoot. Eric's jaw tightened, and Sophia shifted in her seat. Isabel inhaled, steeling herself. Eric, she addressed him directly, for a while now, I've suspected that you haven't been entirely truthful with me. And on this island, I've discovered how deep that deception runs. Confusion and dread flashed across Eric's face. He forced a half-laugh. Isabel, what are you talking about? This is our anniversary dinner. Maybe we should discuss private matters later. Isabel smiled coolly. Oh, I agree we should discuss private matters. But I think it's time everyone here knows the truth. She lifted a small remote and pressed a button. The projector screen, discreetly set up behind her, flickered to life. In front of everyone, footage began to play. Footage of Eric and Sophia in the cabana, locked in passionate kisses, whispering confessions of love, mocking Isabel's gullibility. A collective gasp rose from the assembled guests. Isabel's mother clapped her hand to her mouth, eyes wide with shock. Her father's face contorted with anger, and Anna's cheeks burned red as she glared at Eric and Sophia in disbelief. Eric shot to his feet, panic blazing in his eyes. What the... Isabel, you can't. Turn that off. Sophia stared at the screen, a look of horror and humiliation overtaking her usually composed features. She half stood as if she wanted to run, but she couldn't tear her gaze away from the damning images. Isabel paused the footage. I have more, she said evenly, her voice carrying over the hush that had fallen. But I think this is enough for everyone to see what kind of man my husband is, and what kind of friend he brought to our anniversary celebration. Eric's face was ashen, and the confident facade he'd worn all evening melted away. His eyes darted to Sophia, then back to Isabel. I can explain, he began lamely, but his words were drowned out by a rumble of collective disapproval from her family. Explain. Isabel repeated, her voice gaining steel. What explanation could possibly justify sneaking your mistress onto a trip meant to celebrate our marriage? Eric was momentarily at a loss, his jaw working but no sound emerging. Sophia rose abruptly, her chair scraping against the sand. She tried to speak, but only managed to stammer. Isabel held up a hand. There's one last thing I'd like to share. You see, Eric, you assumed I was just as in the dark about finances as I was about your affair. But you were wrong. I'm the majority owner of this island resort. I bought it months ago. Everything here, every staff member, every hidden camera, every resource, answers to me. A stunned silence engulfed the gathering. Even Isabel's parents looked at her in astonishment. Eric's eyes bulged, and Sophia stumbled back a step. Isabel smiled coldly. That means when I asked management to record your cabana visits, they did so because I am, in effect, their boss. Eric's face drained of color, and he looked like a man who just realized he'd been caught in a trap of his own making. Isabel, why? He rasped, shame and anger warring in his expression. Why? She echoed bitterly. Because I needed to protect myself. From you. From this. She gestured to the still image on the screen behind her. In a voice quivering with a blend of fury and heartbreak, Isabel declared, I'm done. We're finished. Consider this my formal notice that I'm seeking a divorce, effective immediately. And let me make one thing perfectly clear. You will leave this island and my life with nothing. I've already spoken to my legal team. Sobs and gasps rippled through the crowd. Her sister moved to Isabel's side, placing a supportive hand on her shoulder. Her father glared daggers at Eric, while her mother shook her head in disbelief. Eric, for once, had nothing to say. His eyes flickered with desperation, scanning the faces around him. Friends, family, staff, all staring in condemnation. Sophia, too, appeared lost, humiliated, and alone in front of an audience she had tried to charm. With that final blow delivered, Isabel set down the remote. She didn't bother to hide the tears that sprang to her eyes. I won't let you make a fool of me any longer, she said softly. You're free to go. I expect you off my property by tomorrow. She turned on her heel and walked away from the stunned crowd, her sister trailing close behind, tears of her own staining her cheeks. As Isabel disappeared into the darkness, she felt both heartbreak and liberation coursing through her. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but at least she knew she would no longer live under the shadow of Eric's lies. The immediate aftermath of the beachfront confrontation was a whirlwind of activity. Guests and family members stood in shocked groups, whispering and casting accusatory glances at Eric and Sophia. Resort staff discreetly began packing up the dinner display, as it was clear the evening's festivities were irrevocably ruined. Eric attempted to approach Isabel, who had retreated to the periphery of the beach, flanked protectively by her family. Before he could utter a word, Isabel's father blocked his path, a rare display of fury on his normally even-tempered face. "You disgust me," he seethed, pointing a finger at Eric's chest. "My daughter gave you 10 years, and you repay her like this?" Eric's shoulders slumped. I never meant for it to go this far," he stammered, his voice cracking with desperation. "It just happened, and—" "It just happened?" Anna cut in, her eyes flashing. "That's the best you can do? You humiliated my sister on her own anniversary trip." Mara, the resort manager, stepped in with calm authority. She placed a hand on Eric's shoulder, firmly, as though steering him. "Mr. Grant, I suggest you pack your belongings. We have a private seaplane scheduled for tomorrow morning. That should give you time to arrange alternate accommodations." Eric's mouth opened, but no words emerged. He nodded dumbly, casting a final desperate glance at Isabel. Her expression was resolute, arms folded across her chest. She wanted him gone, and he knew it. Sophia, who had been standing a few feet away in mortified silence, burst into tears. She rushed to Eric's side, babbling apologies and futile attempts at explanations. But the crowd was in no mood to hear her out. Mara signaled for additional staff to quietly usher the pair away from the beach, ensuring a measure of dignity for Isabel's family in the midst of the scandal. In the minutes that followed, Isabel's family surrounded her in a comforting circle. Her mother wept openly, while her father, though stoic, gently squeezed Isabel's shoulder. Anna offered quiet words of support, praising Isabel's composure. Though her chest felt tight with hurt, Isabel forced a steady breath. She'd prepared for this moment for days. No, for weeks. Every step had been planned, but nothing could truly prepare her for the emotional onslaught of exposing such a betrayal in front of her loved ones. Mara approached, her stance respectful. "Mrs. Grant, would you like to move to a private suite for the evening? We can arrange security outside if you wish." Isabel wiped away the tears that had begun tracking down her cheeks. "Yes, please. That would be best." Her sister looped an arm around her waist, supporting her as they left the beachfront. The staff guided them to a secluded villa on a higher elevation, away from the primary resort traffic. Along the path, gentle lamplights illuminated the foliage, casting pools of warm light on the ground. Isabel barely registered the beauty of it all. Her mind was too saturated with heartbreak and the immense relief of having finally taken control. Inside the villa, a small team of staff had already prepared a cozy living area. Candles flickered on side tables, and soft music played in the background. Isabel sank into the plush couch, exhausted from the emotional toll of the night. Her mother came over, tears still brimming in her eyes, and wrapped Isabel in a tight hug. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why didn't you tell us you suspected something? We could have helped you." Isabel offered a wan smile. "I wanted to be sure," she said softly. "And I didn't want to drag anyone else into it if it turned out to be a misunderstanding. But once I saw the proof," her voice trailed off, a pained expression crossing her features. Her father joined them, placing a gentle hand on Isabel's shoulder. "You did the right thing. No one deserves to be treated that way. We'll support you through whatever comes next." Anna spoke up from across the room, where she stood near a window overlooking the moonlit ocean. "Sis, you're the strongest person I know. The fact that you managed this entire reveal, owning the resort, setting up the cameras, honestly, it's incredible. Horrible that it had to come to this, but incredible." Isabel's gaze dropped to the floor, a mixture of pride and sorrow swirling inside her. "Thank you. I wish I didn't have to do it. I wish he hadn't lied to me in the first place. The family gathered in a circle around her, offering quiet reassurances. After a tense half-hour of discussing logistics and ensuring Isabel had everything she needed, her parents and sister gently excused themselves, sensing she might want some solitude. They retreated to their own rooms in the villa, promising to be within earshot if she needed them. Alone at last, Isabel sank back into the couch. Through the open French doors, she could hear the faint sound of waves lapping against the shoreline. The moon glowed overhead, illuminating the ocean with a silvery sheen. She wondered if Eric was still reeling from the public humiliation, and if Sophia, who had so brazenly flaunted her affair, realized how badly she had been outmaneuvered. In the quiet, she felt a powerful wave of relief. She had done it. She had exposed the betrayal, made her stand, and reclaimed her power in the most public way possible. Yet, lurking beneath that triumph was an ache for what once was. For the love she'd shared with Eric when they were newlyweds, the idealistic hopes they'd fostered, the laughter they'd once shared. But perhaps, she reflected, that was the price of truth, letting go of illusions. She had spared herself years of further deception. Eventually, she would move on, and the pain she felt now would be replaced by newfound strength and clarity. Slipping off her sandals, Isabel walked onto the balcony that overlooked the ocean. She leaned against the railing, allowing the soft night breeze to kiss her cheeks. Despite the chaos, she felt an unexpected sense of peace. Her gaze traveled up to the brilliant stars overhead. For a moment, she allowed herself to dream of a future unhindered by lies, a future where she could be loved fully, honestly, and without the shadow of deceit. Perhaps that future was closer than she imagined. Tomorrow, Eric would leave the island, stripped of the privileges he had so callously enjoyed. Sophia would depart as well, relegated to a mere footnote in the story of Isabel's life. When they were both gone, Isabel would stand on the shore of her own island, free to chart a new course. Yes, the trap had been set, and it had closed on Eric with a finality no one could deny. Now all that remained was for Isabel to heal, to rebuild, and to allow the brilliance of her own capabilities to guide her into a new chapter, unburdened by a man who never deserved her trust. By the time morning light kissed the island, the entire resort was buzzing with the fallout of the previous night's revelations. Gossip spread among guests and staff, many expressing sympathy for Isabel and disdain for Eric's brazen betrayal. Isabel awoke in the private villa, a slight headache reminding her of the emotional turmoil she had endured. Though she felt drained, she also sensed the undercurrent of strength that came from facing adversity head-on. Her mother brought her a tray of breakfast, fresh fruit, toast, and a soothing herbal tea, and sat with her for a moment. They talked quietly about next steps, ensuring the staff had properly arranged Eric's departure. Meanwhile, Eric had holed up in another part of the resort, avoiding contact with anyone who wasn't strictly necessary. Sophia was nowhere to be seen. Rumor had it she'd locked herself in her suite, too embarrassed to face the curious or judgmental stares. Around mid-morning, Amara informed Isabel that Eric had requested a brief meeting before he left, ostensibly to apologize or at least attempt to salvage some semblance of dignity. Isabel considered refusing outright, but then decided a final conversation might provide closure. They met in a small courtyard near the resort's administrative offices. Tropical flowers bloomed around them, their colors almost painfully vibrant against the emotional weight of the situation. Eric wore a wrinkled shirt and dark sunglasses, as though trying to shield himself from both the sunlight and the consequences of his actions. Isabel stood a few feet away, arms crossed. "Make it quick," she said, her voice devoid of the warmth it once held for him. Eric removed his sunglasses, revealing eyes rimmed with fatigue. "I want to say I'm sorry," he began, his voice husky with strain. "I know that doesn't fix anything, but I never intended to hurt you like this." She let out a humorless laugh. "Never intended to hurt me? You brought your mistress on our anniversary trip. What part of that seems harmless to you?" He winced. "It wasn't harmless. I know that now. Sophia was there when I was feeling lost in our marriage. It spiraled out of control." Isabel shook her head. "And instead of talking to me, seeking counseling, or doing anything remotely honorable, you chose this? Sneaking around? Shaming me in front of my family? Lying to my face?" Eric took a step closer, but she held her ground, a clear signal that no intimacy or closeness was welcome. "Isabel, I'm begging you. Think about the good times we had. There must be some way we can work through this, or at least not end it all so publicly." A spark of anger ignited in her. "You're only concerned about your reputation. You made your choices, Eric. And now you have to live with them. I have the proof of your infidelity. My lawyers are already drawing up the papers. Don't expect leniency." He swallowed hard, an expression of desperation washing over him. "You don't have to do it this way. We can handle this quietly, avoid the scandal." Isabel's eyes flashed. "Quietly? You humiliated me in front of everyone, and now you want a discreet exit? No. You forfeited that privilege. My family saw what you are, and so did the rest of the resort. You'll be on that seaplane by this afternoon. I want you gone." Eric's shoulders sagged in defeat. He could see no way out of the trap he'd created for himself. "I guess this is goodbye, then." "Yes," Isabel replied. "Goodbye." He hesitated a moment longer, perhaps hoping for a shred of mercy. Finding none, he turned away, walking toward the main path that led to his suite. Isabel watched him go, her breath shaky. She allowed herself a moment of sorrow for the love she had once felt for this man. But the moment passed, replaced by a solemn understanding that some endings were necessary for new beginnings. A few hours later, the dull roar of the seaplane's engines signaled Eric's departure. Staff informed Isabel that Sophia left with him, her face hidden by oversized sunglasses, carrying the weight of her defeat. When the plane finally faded into the horizon, an almost tangible sense of relief settled over the resort. Isabel felt it like a cool breeze on her skin, a liberation from the tension that had hung in the air. That afternoon, she gathered her family in the private villa. Sunlight streamed in through the windows, dancing on the polished floors. Isabel took a deep breath, meeting their concerned gazes one by one. "I just wanted to say thank you," she began. "Thank you for standing by me. Thank you for supporting me, and for respecting my decisions. This wasn't easy, but I feel stronger knowing you're here." Her mother's eyes brimmed with tears. "We love you, sweetheart. We always will." Her father nodded, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We're proud of you for standing up for yourself. Don't ever doubt that." Anna gave her sister a fierce hug. "You're a badass, Izzy. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." They spent the rest of the afternoon talking, sharing memories, and even finding moments of laughter amid the wreckage of the anniversary trip. Isabel was grateful for their presence, grateful she hadn't faced this betrayal alone. As evening fell, the island seemed to breathe easier, as though it recognized that the source of its tension had departed. Isabel stood on the now quiet beach, her bare feet sinking into the warm sand. With the sun dipping below the horizon, the sky glowed pink and orange. She felt a gentle sense of closure wash over her. In the distance, a few resort guests strolled by, giving her nods of sympathy and support. Mara was among them, and she paused to speak with Isabel briefly. "How are you holding up?" Mara asked, her tone gentle. Isabel sighed, managing a small smile. "Better than I expected. There's a certain freedom in knowing the worst is behind me." Mara nodded. "We're all here to help in any way we can. And remember, this is your island," she added, a note of admiration in her voice. "You have every right to feel at peace here." Isabel gazed out at the waves. "Thank you, Mara. For everything." She stayed on the beach long after Mara left, listening to the rhythmic rush of water against the shore. The last traces of sunlight disappeared, leaving only a faint afterglow. Stars began to twinkle overhead, tiny beacons scattered across an endless sky. Deep down, Isabel sensed that this was more than just the end of her marriage. It was the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one where she was fully in control, unafraid to wield her power when necessary, and free to pursue her own happiness without compromise. News of the scandal spread quickly among the social circles that Isabel and Eric once shared. The exclusive city clubs, the gala committees, and the philanthropic boards all buzzed with the story of how Eric had been exposed in such a dramatic fashion, on an island his wife secretly owned, no less. Isabel's phone lit up with messages from acquaintances who offered half-hearted condolences, secretly relishing the salacious details. She ignored most of them, preferring to keep the details of her divorce proceedings behind closed doors. Meanwhile, Eric found himself at the center of a maelstrom he never anticipated. His own business ventures took a hit as partners and investors distanced themselves, wary of the public relations fallout. The man who once walked confidently through upscale events, always with a smug glimmer in his eye, now found doors closing wherever he turned. He reached out to Isabel's lawyers, pleading for a more amicable settlement, but found no mercy. Isabel's legal team, bolstered by the incontrovertible evidence of his infidelity and the powerful financial assets she commanded, ensured that Eric stood to lose almost everything. Back on the island, the staff quietly removed any lingering traces of Eric's presence, extra toiletries in the shared villa, personal items from the yacht. It was as though he had never been there at all, save for the emotional scars he left behind. Sophia, likewise, became persona non grata among the circles that once courted her vivacious presence. Invitations dried up, and her reputation suffered a blow from which she might never recover. She was no innocent victim, and society loved nothing more than turning on those who were caught in the act of deception. Weeks passed, and Isabel remained on the island longer than planned. She postponed her return to the city, craving the tranquility of her tropical sanctuary. She communicated with her lawyers remotely, signing documents and making decisions about asset divisions through encrypted emails and phone calls. Each step brought her one step closer to the official dissolution of her marriage. During that time, she also embraced the island's offerings more fully. She woke early for sunrise meditation on the beach, letting the rhythmic sound of waves ground her. She indulged in spa treatments that eased both physical and emotional tension. She learned to navigate the island's hidden trails, discovering breathtaking vistas that overlooked the sea. Her family stayed for part of that period, ensuring she wasn't left alone during the most emotionally turbulent weeks. Her mother, in particular, found solace in the island's natural beauty and eventually understood why Isabel felt drawn to remain there. One evening, after her parents and sister had returned to their normal lives on the mainland, Isabel walked barefoot along the shoreline. The divorce papers had just been finalized, and Eric's downfall was practically complete. The division of their shared assets heavily favored Isabel, though she cared less about the financial aspect than the sense of moral closure. A gentle breeze whipped through her hair, carrying the scent of salt and hibiscus. Looking up, she saw a sky so full of stars it felt like a celestial tapestry. She couldn't help but feel gratitude for the strength she'd found, for the family who stood by her, and for the island that had become her refuge. Glancing back at the resort property, lights glimmered softly among the palms. Her resort, she reminded herself. A symbol of independence and resilience she hadn't fully appreciated until now. The staff was loyal and respectful, and under Mara's capable management, the resort thrived. Isabel decided to invest further in its growth, envisioning sustainability initiatives, luxury expansions, and philanthropic programs to benefit the local community. She found that rather than wallowing in bitterness, she felt inspired to create something beautiful out of her adversity. The betrayal that once threatened to shatter her now propelled her forward, fueling a determination to write a new, bolder chapter in her life. The ocean lapped gently at her ankles, and she walked out until the water rose to her knees. She closed her eyes, allowing the gentle sway of the tide to hold her. In that moment, she forgave herself, for not seeing the signs sooner, for trusting someone who was unworthy of her love. She forgave Eric, too, in a quiet, solemn way, hoping that letting go of anger would pave the path for her future. A faint smile curved her lips as she turned and walked back to the shore. She knew the past would always be part of her story, but it no longer had the power to define her. She was free of a deceitful husband, free of the illusions she'd once clung to, and free to reclaim her life on her own terms. Morning light streamed through the curtains of Isabel's private villa, ushering in a new day. She stretched in bed, feeling more rested and at ease than she had in years. The official divorce decree had been filed. The emotional storm had passed, leaving her with a strange sense of quiet peace. After slipping into a breezy sundress, she stepped outside onto the villa's balcony. The sun was still low on the horizon, casting a golden glow across the rippling surface of the ocean. She inhaled deeply, letting the tropical air fill her lungs. Her phone buzzed with a message. Her sister, Anna, checking in from back home. Isabel smiled as she read Anna's encouraging words. Proud of you. You're an inspiration. I'll visit soon. Love you. Over the next few days, Isabel spent time meeting with Mara and the resort's department heads. They discussed new marketing campaigns, ways to enhance the guest experience, and eco-friendly initiatives that Isabel was passionate about. She wanted the resort to be more than just a luxury destination. She envisioned it as a place where guests could find emotional and spiritual renewal, a reflection of her own journey. Word of her sole ownership spread discreetly among higher-level staff. While most guests remained unaware that the gracious woman walking the grounds was the property's owner, the staff now treated her with a blend of respect and affection. To them, she wasn't just a distant investor but a hands-on leader who genuinely cared about the resort's success. Late one afternoon, she joined a small group for a guided meditation session by the water. The instructor, a gentle soul with a calming presence, led them through deep breathing exercises and visualization techniques. Isabel felt the tension of the past weeks melt away, replaced by an invigorating sense of possibility. When the session concluded, she lingered by the water's edge, chatting with a few of the other participants, mostly vacationing couples and solo travelers. She was struck by how many came to the island seeking healing or transformation. One woman confided that she had recently lost her job and was here to reset her priorities. A man explained he was recovering from heartbreak and wanted a place to find solace. Isabel recognized herself in their stories, individuals in need of a fresh start. And she felt an urge to help, to nurture this island into a sanctuary for anyone navigating life's upheavals. That evening, she dined alone at one of the resort's seaside lounges. The moon glowed bright, casting a silver path across the dark sea. She enjoyed a simple meal of grilled fish and tropical fruit sorbet, savoring each bite without the usual distractions of social obligations or business calls. Afterward, she wandered the resort grounds, letting her thoughts drift. She passed the spot where Eric had once stood, making empty vows of love. Now, those vows were memories, distant echoes of a life she no longer inhabited. She paused at the cabana, the scene of his clandestine meetings with Sophia, and felt only a faint pang of sadness. It was a testament to her progress that the sight no longer tore her apart inside. Eventually, she found herself on the same stretch of beach where she had first glimpsed Sophia and sensed something was amiss. The tide was low, revealing smooth expanses of damp sand that shimmered under the moonlight. She kicked off her sandals, letting the cool sand massage her feet as she strolled. A sensation of renewal washed over her, as if the night itself was congratulating her for the strength it had taken to stand tall. She thought about the path ahead, the possibility of new friendships, perhaps even new love one day. She wasn't ready for that yet, but she allowed herself a small flutter of anticipation for what the future might hold. Tomorrow, she would continue working with Mara and the staff, laying down a clearer vision for the resort. She would also book a flight back to the mainland to tie up loose ends, secure in the knowledge that this island, her island, would always be here waiting for her. It had become a symbol of her resilience, a safe haven where she had discovered the depths of her own resolve. Standing at the water's edge, Isabel gazed at the moon's reflection dancing on the waves. She felt a soft breeze caress her skin, carrying with it the promise of a bright tomorrow. In her heart, she carried the knowledge that she was not just a survivor of betrayal, she was the architect of her own destiny. This island had once been the setting for her greatest heartbreak. Now it was the canvas upon which she would paint her new life, a life defined by authenticity, self-love, and the unwavering assurance that no matter how dark things might get, she possessed the power to light her own path. With a final, determined glance at the sea, Isabel turned and walked back toward the resort, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Her story was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning, on an island she proudly owned, in a life she had taken back for herself. I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please go ahead and generously hit that like button and subscribe for more captivating tales like this. We'd love to hear from you. What lessons have you learned from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next story.